Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you doing today? You are now watching the sixth episode, Rise with Gockel. I'm Carol. Just to introduce a little bit of myself, if you're tuning in for the first time today, I'm Carol. I'm a confidence coach, author, and speaker. And today we have a very special guest. This lady is somebody that I've actually met last year, but she has left an impression. Partly because she is somebody like me who is here to serve the community. And she is Beverly. She's a Singaporean counseling psychologist with over 8 years of experience in social and mental health services. She first worked as a child protection officer and subsequently specialized in family mediation work with elderly patients, parents, and as well as the adult children. So after completing her master's, she worked at a family service center with families whose children had challenges such as ADHD, dyslexia, and anger management. Shortly after, she worked as a psychologist in Zenith Medical Clinic, which is ZMC, and conducted therapy with adults. The adults she worked with had family and relationship problems, workplace and financial stresses, or even health issues. Currently, Beverly works as a private psychologist at Strive Family. She's also provides psychological services to the Sports and Cardiology Center and Women of Courage Asia. Aside from being a psychologist, Beverly is also a private trainer and teacher. She conducted trainings such as problem solving and conflict resolution for adolescents under the care of MSF and teaches children how to cope with stressors in their academic studies. And Beverly, she's a multilingual. She speaks English, Mandarin, and Bahasa Indonesia. So isn't this impressive? If you are impressed with her resume, then let us join our hands together and welcome Beverly. Beverly, hello. Hi, Beverly.
Hi,
Thank you for
Carol.
joining us today. How are
Thank
you
you for
feeling?
inviting me. Good. Still a bit perky at this time of the night.
Yeah, I can understand it's actually quite late at night. I mean, one of the reasons that my show is actually at 10 o'clock because this is to reach to a bigger audience, especially families. I mean, I'm a mom myself, so this is the time after the kids are off to bed so that I can actually sit down and really do a real recap of my work as well. So with your experience, or rather maybe just before going into your experiences, perhaps you can share a little bit with us about yourself. Tell us, what's your story? What's your hobby or your work?
So basically, I think you did share quite a bit of what I do already. So just a little bit of like some of my hobbies. I enjoy attending courses regularly, so that this helps me to actually be able to reflect about my own skills. And also I like reading, so this like reading books, this helps me to actually see like what are the different perspectives of even the authors, and how they actually view life or people. So generally does relate a little bit to my work as well. But so looking at this, you can see that I'm someone who likes to learn and also just continue to gain more knowledge over time. Yeah.
I mean, you don't really struck me as a clinical psychologist. But based on your demeanor and the way that you present yourself, I feel you are more like a kind of a teacher, rather than a psychologist. So why do you choose the profession?
Yeah, so I mean, I did do some teaching even when I was younger. However, I think I kind of realized that after spending time with like a whole group of kids, I would have a migraine. So I think it's also important, when choosing your career, to be able to know what aptitude you have. When I was young, generally I used to like helping people. So nobody told me that I could donate to Singapore Children's Society, but I would just give some of my pocket money every month and just mail it to them through the envelope they sent. So looking back, I think when I pursued my education, that was something I think that left quite a bit like of a mark in a sense. Like just wanting to help people was something that I really had since young. So of course, I think with choosing like which school to go to and what course to take, I did feel that psychology was something that um, got my interest in, and it actually made me feel like I could understand human behavior a bit better. So quite thankful that during the studies, I actually did quite well and also enjoyed it at the same time. So I think in psychology, people usually feel that you can learn a lot about the human body and also about the mind, and that was something that really struck me as I learned about like health psychology and how the mind and the body is very interrelated, and also about helping adolescents as well. That was something that I felt a connection with when I was studying too. So yeah, I mean having all this in mind is also important to have work experience. So I think through my job, like you introduced earlier on, like as a child protection officer, it made me realize that I really, really wanted to help children in terms of uh, like helping, like giving a listening ear, knowing what skills we can even teach them. So that's where I realized that I wanted to upgrade my skills and also to better help these people and families. So that's when I decided to pursue my master's, and that led me to where I am today as a psychologist. Because needing to practice as a psychologist, you would have a master's as a requirement here in Singapore. So yeah, that's where I mean, I'm thankful that I managed to do the masters locally, and by God's grace, able to actually have a very enjoyable journey, even with friends in the master's course. Though it was quite tough as well. Yeah, like having to work and study at the same time. But all in all, I'm here today. So like with you, so I'm quite yeah, thankful about being where I am.
Hmm. And what are the common misconceptions surrounding what you do? Because it's a very niche kind of a profession.
Hmm. Well, usually when I'm like in the taxi with the like Grab or like the drivers will ask like, "Oh, can you like read minds? Like, can you read my mind?" And then I'll be like, no, uncle, I cannot read your mind." But of course, I think in our training, we actually develop skills that allow us to attune with people. So I think that helps, like, being able to observe people, be a bit more sensitive. But we really can't read minds. So we won't be able to know what you're thinking like right now in detail. Yeah. So that's quite a funny misconception that people have.
Mhm.
Um, and on a serious note, another misconception is also about like that only crazy people would see us for
Mm.
therapy.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think in Singapore it's quite a stigma to say that, oh, I'm seeing a professional for help. And I think it's also not just about that only when you're crazy, then you would need help.
Mm. Mm.
At the end of the day, I think prevention is better than cure. So sometimes even simple problems, like being able to like stress, not being able to function day to day, it's also something that would benefit you if you actually get help earlier on. Yeah.
Mm.
So I think like through therapy, like helping to actually stem out all these stigma is be able to let people know like that therapy involves a lot of like awareness building. So for clients to actually know more about themselves. However, I think it does take some skills in terms of how to bring out that awareness. So that's generally how we are trained in, like different therapy or even the way we talk to people.
Mm.
And this, I think, having that sense of awareness actually then helps people to make healthy choices, like in the long term. So that's actually the whole process of therapy itself. And sometimes it's also hard to talk to like family and friends about your
Mm.
problems. Yeah, and like because you're afraid like what would they think about you? So seeing someone who is neutral, like a professional, can then give you that safe space to be able to share some of these problems. Yeah.
Okay, wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this. Maybe we can just
Mm,
turn the attention to the viewers right now. We have got a hello, from Carlos. Hello, Carlos. And then
hello.
we have saying a hello as well from Irfa. Irfa is dialing in from Malaysia. Hello. Hi, and
Hi.
Ilva has a question. So, for those of you who are actually watching this, if you have any question, please feel free to just put into the comments below. And then towards the end of the session, we will answer your question. So if you have any questions for Beverly with regards to her profession, with regards to any questions, issues that or challenges that you might be facing right now, so if you have, just put it in, and then we will be able to answer your question towards the end of the session. So let's get to know Beverly a little bit more. I mean, I'm curious, what is the best advice you have gotten since starting your own practice?
I think one thing that has really helped me is to like people that would tell me, I think like family and friends, is to be able to take things lightly. So like be able to not hold things so seriously to the point that you get drained, and being able to step back from a difficult situation and be mindful to live like in the present.
Mm,
So that actually helps. I think even for myself personally, being in such a job can be quite draining too emotionally. So being able to actually be grateful for little things and actually like laughing at yourself is, I think, a very good advice that I think I have learned since starting my practice.
I see, I see. I mean, as you know, right now, we are officially it's still on circuit breaker, or
Mm,
lockdown, and I am also very curious. Do you actually see more cases, right now, during this COVID situation?
mm. So I think um in some sense that we do see cases that like do ask us even for like pro bono services,
Mm,
because I think a lot of them are feeling quite stressed during this period, and it's very normal because this is not a normal situation. It's unprecedented, like it hasn't happened before. So these are normal reactions, I think, to feel anxious or to feel stressed and worried. So we do have those cases that require maybe like some kind of short-term help. And also, I think just to share, like I did a national care hotline duty that is carried out by the government under MSF. So we do get calls where people actually, are being affected. Like either they get more anxious, or they cannot get out of the house, and then they are being stuck at home. I think it does affect a lot of those people who are alone.
mm,
So yeah, like I think we did get quite a number of calls in the hotline. So I think people are seeing like they really need help as well during this period. So if any of you wish to call the hotline, yeah, we can share the number later on as well.
yeah, yeah, we'll be able to do that. And the thing is that because right now, as you mentioned earlier, everybody is being cooped up at home. Emotions definitely run high. So, and especially, with kids, they have nowhere to go. And since you work a lot with children, how can you, would you maybe just share with us, how can parents best manage their emotions when it comes to dealing with with children, and how are they going to be able to just to ease their stress a little bit going forward?
Mm. So I think for parents, there are a lot of resources
Mm-hmm.
online. I think even for like children, to be able to read like books on even the COVID situation, so that the children can also be able to understand like what's happening, and so that the parents also don't feel like they have to try to explain or try to actually like kind of like maybe cushion the children on what's happening, so because that can add a bit more pressure on the parents if they're not able to also express that they themselves are also feeling a bit anxious to their children. And that is fine, like to be able to share with your children how you feel, and especially during this special like situation of COVID. So being able to, I think, support one another at home would require being able to share some of your feelings as well. Yeah, about
Mm-hmm.
during this time. And another, I guess, tip would be that to actually take things like one day as it comes, because I think even with the circuit breaker ending, it will also come in phases. So um, having like expectations, about how the circuit breaker would, end, it may affect like how you feel. So having, I think, minimal expectations and being able to accept things that are not within our control. So the ability to have acceptance in things that are like not something we can predict, that would benefit as well. So there is this free phone app, and also a website as well for this app. It's called Insight Timer. We can share the name as well later on.
Yeah.
It actually has a lot of resources on how to manage our emotions. So, like mindfulness, like being able to practice certain like short exercises that are guided by people who have recorded it. And like, so there are resources for children, and
Mm-hmm.
also for adults. So you can pick different like categories, like if you're stressed or if you're anxious, and then you can actually listen to somebody talk and guide you through some relaxation exercises as well. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think that's quite important
Yeah.
for parents to have. Mm,
Hmm. Okay, well, we have
yeah.
a question from Irfa. So Irfa was saying, I'm studying Bachelor of Arts honors in Human Resources. I do have a friend who always depressed about her relationship. She always wanted to commit suicide about 3 times and ended up at the hospital. What should I do as a friend?
Mm. So I think Alpha, like it must be quite tough when you have a friend that keeps going to the hospital and having to support the friend emotionally as well. Um, Most importantly, I always believe that in helping someone, important also to have to build a network for the person. So not just helping that person by yourself, but also getting other people who the person feels comfortable with, um, so that it is not just you alone who's helping the person. And so that's the first thing. So that in the event that you yourself feel tired as well, then you can have that other network as well to rely on, because they can then help support that friend of yours. However, sometimes it's difficult to have these networks. Most importantly is being able to actually have that trust with that friend, so that you can actually even be able to help that friend make the right decisions in even like seeking appropriate help. So I'm not sure like what led to the hospitalizations and things like that. But I think having that person see a psychologist or other mental health professional on a regular basis would also be a more long-term solution, so that they can also be followed up by them even when there are such admissions to the hospital.
Mm.
And even if you can't do all these things, I think as a friend, um, it's just being able to listen to that person and being able to actually let that person know also like how much you can really help them, and knowing where your boundaries are. It's also important to keep yourself safe as well. So yeah, so I think being a friend, knowing that role as a friend is quite important. So I think being able to talk to that person, and also maybe have fun doing things together, like positive activities with that person, would also help that person become more resilient overall, like in the long term.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I really like the what you mentioned, all that about setting boundaries. Okay, Irfa, I hope Beverly is able to answer your questions, and I totally agree with Beverly on setting boundaries because this is something that I do work with my clients as well, my coaching clients. And unlike you are doing the clinical part. My role with my coaching clients, like I'm trying to actually reframe their mind by asking them leading questions and then helping them to make the decision for themselves, because I'm not clinically trained. I did actually contemplate if I wanted to go into the clinical route, right? And I have utmost respect for you on your profession because I don't think I'm the kind of person who's able to be sitting there and to be able to sit there with a straight face and receive all those emotions that's coming out from the client. Because when the people start to cry, I feel anxious, and sometimes I don't know how to react. So I don't think I'm actually good for the profession. But from a coach perspective, I do have tools to be able to lead them forward. And one of the tools, as you mentioned, is guiding them to have these certain boundaries. And it
Mm,
seems that because right now everything it's so came so suddenly,
mm,
and people tend to have all these boundaries blurred. Right? Not that you mentioned. So in a
mm.
situation like this, from a clinical perspective and from your experience, what would your advice be from people whose boundaries is a bit blur? How do they recognize it and actually move away from it?
Mm. So, I mean, there is a book on boundaries, and it's quite helpful, I think. I will tell you the name of the book once I find that out. But to answer the question, I think, like what you said, to be aware of it, and like what to do with it once you are aware, right? So most importantly, I think it's also comfort. So when we feel that boundaries are being crossed, we tend to feel that there is some discomfort, like we're not very sure whether we're comfortable where this is going. So I think sometimes it's good to take that as a signal, just like how we have personal space, like physical proximity, like how close someone can be with you. It's also the same thing, like emotionally, like to have that emotional distance that is healthy. So that kind of boundary, one is to base on like your body, like how comfortable you feel, what's your sensing during that moment. Um, and I think there are a lot of people who have, in some sense, with a lot of enmeshment, or in a sense, like where the boundaries always cross with other people. So, like basically, like taking on something that is the others, but it's not yours.
Mm.
So that's where you kind of know that there's a enmeshment going on. So like if for example the person has a problem, and like if they're an adult already, for example, then if you were to hear their problems, and if you start to realize that you kind of take on some of their problems by, I guess it's not just offering suggestions, but when you feel very emotional or you feel very affected, when like maybe the problem seems to not be resolved or it seems to get worse, and then you get affected as well, that's when it's like a sign that you would tend to be taking on the other person's problem onto you as well. And yeah, so these are some signs that you can take note of as well. Yeah, and the other question I think you were mentioning, which is like how do we manage if there's these boundaries crossed, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would think that it's important to, like what I mentioned earlier, to take a step back and to actually kind of look at things that are happening around you, and to actually observe like what effect it has on you first, and then being able to actually know how to actually tell the other person how you feel. Yeah, and that like you feel that okay, certain things you do get affected, and maybe there are certain things you may not be able to help as much, um, and being assertive. So I think be able to say that I feel something, when I help you, in terms of the problems, and then however it doesn't really help me as well, and so like sharing how you feel as a result of when the boundaries are being crossed. Yeah. And the second thing I think would be to also take like a physical kind of separation. Sometimes distancing yourself is not a bad thing. Like being able to take a break with that person, so that you can actually kind of be more grounded and not be so caught up in the other person's issues. So sometimes, yeah, learning to actually let the other person grow. And so, for example, if you think of like a child when they're learning how to walk, right? So as parents, I think it's very natural, like when they're learning how to walk, they're crawling, then suddenly you try to like, like be around them so that they don't fall. But I think boundaries sometimes it involves that like you need to let the other person grow from a tough experience, and then you cannot always solve things for them. So as like a child, if they were to actually kind of fall a little bit, but you're around there, and you can just notice and watch and observe, so at least they know you're there, but that you can give a bit of guidance, but you're going to kind of give them that autonomy to learn how to pick themselves up again, like if the child falls down. Yeah, and that's I think the biggest thing that we can give to children, which is learning how to pick themselves up when they fall.
Yeah. So it's like exercise a little bit of tough love sometimes, right? In a way.
Mm,
Yeah. And also, when as you're actually explaining, it comes to me when doing my teen years, I have friends who would like share their problems, and then subsequently, you see the situation, and then from a third party perspective, and then you will tell your friend, okay, this is actually, you offer advice, and then usually advice are not heed, and because of that, I developed this frustration against my friends. So if you don't want to hear what I have to tell you, then why are you telling me all your problems? Why are you offloading all your problems to me? And I'm sure a lot of people are actually feeling that as well. And it's not that you're not being a good friend. Sometimes you need to be able to disassociate yourself so that they can realize that they may need actually professional help, right?
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have an answer from Urfa that's specifically for you. Say, to be honest, it's not easy. She'll try her best, and thank you
Mm.
so much, Beverly. Yeah. So
Welcome, Afa.
yeah, and I'm also very very curious, because it seems to me that you have actually gone through quite a lot in order to be where you are. So what are the things that you had to overcome to be where you are today?
Mm. So I think it's like being where I am in a sense that is quite different from my peers. I feel that like I'm on a road less traveled.
Mm,
Um, and in a sense that I think most of my peers would be in like maybe a more iron rice bowl kind of jobs. And I think having to step out to do such private work um, involves a lot of initiative and a lot of independence where I have to actually be able to think on my own feet,
mm,
or okay, stand on my own feet, and yeah, and really like kind of think what I need to do. And there's nobody that's going to carve out like a career path for you,
mm,
and you have to actually figure out what are your own career development goals and what are your own KPIs in a sense. So it's not going to be set for you by your bosses. So in some sense, this is something that was at least quite a tough part in the beginning of this journey. Um, However, I'm thankful that like I did kind of like after a while I actually enjoyed it. I didn't expect to, I think, like when I started out this private practice, because it's a lot of unknowns, but
mm,
I do feel that I have an adventurous spirit, and I think that helped me to overcome these challenges because not, I think you would feel that when there are like difficulties and setbacks, then you would feel like, oh, okay, maybe let's just go back to where we started.
mm.
But
Yes.
like just like when you go on a hike, um, sometimes it's like there are a lot of unknowns and the path you take, you're not sure whether a lot of people have traveled there. But if you do have this sense of, I guess, like kind of going with the flow and just knowing that maybe something that awaits you, when you finally reach, like when you climb to the top of of the of the mountain, and when you're really standing out there, it was really worth taking this journey. So yeah, so I think that's something that I had to overcome as well. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's really a lot to overcome. And it's quite refreshing to hear it, from the past few episodes we've been interviewing, you know, I would say traditional entrepreneurs. And then for you, because you are part of I would say from medical field. So the perspective of people who started out doing a practice in the medical field or clinical field, it's like it seems to be easier, or I think that it seems to be easier, and the journey that you have to go through in order to come here, it looks like it's the same for actually for quite a lot of people who are starting out, having to tune the mindset. And because do you think because of your training as a psychologist, and you are able to have a clearer mind and clearer direction because of what you have in your toolbox in order to be successful today?
Yeah, I definitely agree that part of the training, like even in our attachments, and also I think as we even learn new therapies, it requires us to also be put in the position of like a patient or a client, so that when we feel what the effects are of the therapy, then we really
Mm,
know whether it, what it's like for the patient or the client. So I think, so getting to the point would be that in a sense that knowing how it feels like, um, and using some of the techniques that we actually teach the clients as well, that we see, um, somehow those techniques just naturally, we actually, for myself personally, I kind of just, it it just happens to me as well. So I don't practice it purposely, like intentionally on me, but like I think the ability, like for example, mindfulness, like thinking about like the current and the present, being very aware of, okay, currently I'm feeling anxious. Oh, okay, what is this feeling about? And rather than trying to suppress the anxiety, but to be able to accept that, okay, I feel anxious, and explore like what's the, what's really causing, or how come, today I feel a bit anxious. And so I think that kind of naturally comes after time, and I feel that I actually benefit a lot from that. So I think in that sense, having to go through this journey can be very anxiety provoking, and having then this tool to be able to be aware of my feelings and even allow it to happen, like to allow it to sit, in me, then that actually helps the journey to be more, I would say, like fruitful. Like even though I feel anxious at times in this journey, it has still enabled me to be able to move on, and also like seek greater heights in this journey as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that. For those who are still with us, if you have a question for Beverly, please feel free to put in on the comments below so that Beverly can answer your questions in a bit. Okay, we have a comment from Carlos who say many brain juice activation. So I guess this is what you're saying, that you have been inspired by what Beverly has mentioned to you earlier in the during the interview, that you are right now busy absorbing everything, right? Hey. Yeah. Okay. Well, as you know, Beverly, this show is called Rise, RISE. So, what does Rise means to you?
Mm, I mean, simply put, I was like thinking is to rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what came to my mind. Yeah, when I saw like this word. And it also brings to mind about like when to rise to the occasion is also like to be resilient. And meaning like to be able to bounce back. So I did my master's dissertation on gratitude, and I did a research study in Singapore, and how gratitude exercises actually is a type of positive activity that contributes to happiness. So it's basically doing intentional positive activities that then builds your resilience by increasing positive emotions that you experience day to day. And so yeah, so I mean, in short, I think being resilient, being able to rise to the occasion, is something that rise means to me, and that can come through various forms of positive activities that we can actually do in our day to day. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you definitely has risen, from where you were, as you explained, and what you have overcome to be who you are today. Okay. If you have any more questions, audience, Beverly is able to take questions. Okay. And as you mentioned earlier, the National Care Hotline. So can I just double confirm with the number? Is it 1-800-202-6868? Is that
Yes,
the one?
correct.
Okay, then I will just put it in here onto this as a ticker. So, as Beverly mentioned earlier, for those who are still with us, for those who are just newly joined us, Beverly said that if there's any challenges that you might be facing, that you need someone to talk to, you can call this national hotline. This is specifically for Singapore. Right? Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about this hotline for those people who have just joined us?
Yeah, so basically this hotline is for Singaporeans or even people staying in Singapore currently during the COVID situation. And it was purposely actually set up for this pandemic, and they actually managed to get a lot of people like myself and other mental health professionals to come on board to volunteer. And basically we take shifts, and so they would actually divert calls that are more serious to a mental health professional who are on standby, and we basically have time to be able to talk to the person, listen to them, and find out what are their needs, and also then direct what are the necessary help they may need as well. So it's a very good hotline. I would say that looking at how fast we managed to come up with this whole arrangement, I would it is really quite remarkable, and I hope like if any time, even like for financial issues, things that you're not sure about where to get financial assistance, even this hotline is for that as well. So it is not just to speak to a mental health professional. There are other officers on duty who also attend to financial issues, abuse issues, anything business related issues because of the COVID. So if you're not sure who to call, you can call this hotline, and then they will also direct you to the relevant authorities. Yeah.
Okay. So do note this hotline number. And before we end the show, just wanted to check with you, what's next for you, Beverly?
Well, I think what's next for me would be looking at telehealth, because I think during this COVID situation, we were able to do a lot of therapy online. So this is something that I'm quite interested in as well, and I do quite like this platform as well because it definitely has some benefits. For some, I think they may not be very comfortable sometimes, in front of a screen. But I guess sometimes you do need telehealth, like in this kind of situations. And also for people, I feel that are maybe even finding it difficult to get out of the house, if they have anxiety issues, or they are a bit resistant to, getting help face to face. So it's like a starter, like for them to kind of get a feel of what it's like, and if they benefit from that, and then they can actually take it on from there as well. Yeah, so yep, that's something I'm looking at next.
Cool. Okay, we have a question from Carlos. Carlos is saying that, from the social media, he has seen people posted that there are people actually going out naked or throwing stuff out, I presume from the window from a HDB flat. What are the likely cause of it? And have you attended to such cases before? Self-destructive behavior, I believe.
I would say I have encountered before in terms of like self-destructive behaviors. May not exactly be what like Carlos mentioned to that extent. And I think at the end of the day, it's also a lot about how people are dealing. I mean, if you're talking about this happening right now during the COVID situation, then it is definitely a way of coping. So even self-destruction is actually a type of coping. I mean, in what we learn, and however, it's not a very healthy and helpful form of coping. So sometimes, the mind and the body, we do things to actually cope with a situation, but it's like, in some sense, the body actually has some maladaptation, like we're not able to actually do it in a proper way. So usually it does come from different reasons, like it could be biological, or it could be also just more of like emotional, like being able to emotionally deal with the situation that the person has. And yeah, so I think working with such people, it does take a lot of effort. So definitely a lot more time and also understanding how that behavior has developed across time. So
Mm,
it's like it's not where it probably came from like suddenly, you know, one day they decided to do that. But it's like it there was probably a build up and how like the different they may have other behaviors last time that may not have been so self-destructive.
mm,
And yeah, over time it changes. And then
mm,
in the end, that's maybe the only way they can, you know, get attention or get things that they need from people around them.
true, true, true. You know, how do people get in touch with you? You know, if they want to fix an appointment to see you.
They can actually send me an email if possible.
Okay.
Um, so we can give that as well. And if they don't have an email, then there's also a work phone that I have as well. Yeah, so I think these are the two mode. Yeah.
Okay. Then I think would it be okay for them to actually reach out to you on your corporate email if that's okay? Because I don't want to put your work phone on social media and then you might be getting calls all over. Is it okay that I just put your email here? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
email
Beverly.
setup.
Okay, Beverly, what's your email?
So it's bravery therapy
Bravery. Bravery therapy
at gmail.com.
at gmail.com. Okay, we'll just put this here on the ticker here. This is how, so if you can check if this is the correct email address, braverytherapy at gmail.com.
Yes.
Yes. Because thank you so much, Beverly. I shared so much, and I have a lot of takeaway from what you have mentioned earlier today, and I've learned quite a few things for myself as well. And then for those who are watching, thank you so much for hanging out with us and listening to what we have to say, and also, commenting and to be able to share your experience as well for IRFA. And if you are thinking of speaking to a professional, psychologist professional, to deal with your challenges, you can get in touch with Beverly here on this email, braverytherapy at gmail.com. Thank you so much, Beverly, for coming on to the show. Really appreciate you taking the time out.
Thank you, Carol.
So, everybody, thank
No,
you so
thank
much
you
for
too for
joining
the
us.
time.
Yes, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And I will see you again next week. Same time, we'll have another powerful female who's going to be on the show. So have a good weekend in advance. Bye bye.
Bye bye.